Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, taking care of business on Canada's podcast network. Joining me today is Bruce Winder, who is a national retail expert and consultant. Thanks for joining us today, Bruce.
Thanks for having me on the program, Mario.
Well, let's talk about retail sales. We're one day as we record this. We're one day after Boxing Day here in Canada, and what have you heard about this holiday season and how retail sales have gone in this country?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the only really hard piece of data we have is Stats Canada gave us a preliminary view to November that said retail sales were down 0.5%. So, from everything I've heard, it sounds like the holiday overall was a little bit soft. So, is that the soft mean down 3%, 5%? I'm not sure. But you have to realize that whatever dollar value we talk about, you have to shave off about 6 or 7% for inflation. So probably a lot more in terms of decrease when you look at it from a unit volume standpoint.
hmm Now, one of the things that I've noticed this year is a lot of sales out there, and even obviously we have Black Friday, which kind of kicks off everything, right? And but man, everywhere I went from Black Friday on, I kept seeing signs, sales, sales, sales. Why so many sales this year?
Well, I think retailers realized that there was a significant amount of headwinds that consumers were facing. And you and I have talked about some of these before, everything from, inflation that's high single digit, food inflation that's double digit. You look at interest rates, going up for the first time in a number of years. You also look at the cost of housing and rent in a number of major
Yeah.
urban centers. You look at gasoline, which has gone down a bit, but still it's a hefty price right now for gasoline. You look at the housing market, which is cooled. You look at the stock market, which is cooled. The job prospects are tough as well, particularly hard hit in 2022 was the tech sector. So, there's just so many headwinds out there, geopolitical tensions as well, continued supply transition. I think retailers just realize that, for a lot of them who do discounting, now is the time to offer some fairly compelling discounts in order to stimulate interest from consumers, because consumers weren't really going to bite unless there was a fairly decent discount and value out there.
Do you think a lot of these sales will continue into the new year?
I think you will see some of these definitely this week. As we record this, we're into the Boxing Week. Certainly this week, and then I think you'll see a lot of sales continue in the form of clearance. Retailers might sort of back off on the promotional stuff you see with the flyers and just get a bit more into clearance mode. They still might use flyers and things, but just not the sort of holiday discounts we've seen, because there is pockets of inventory out there that need to be drawn down, not just seasonal merchandise, but other things too.
Mhm.
And all the tough things I mentioned earlier, they're not really going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Most economists predict that 23 is going to be pretty tough, at least the first half, and maybe even the second half. So retailers are going to have to keep a sharp pencil in order to try to keep their top line going.
So what is that going to mean for retailers, heading into a tough year? Like we all know that this particular time of the year, November and December especially, are in many ways make or break for many of the retailers, especially smaller ones. Uh do, what can we expect in 2023 and the fallout of this past year?
Yeah, I think sadly you're going to see another wave of retailers either go bankrupt or have to get new financing or sell themselves, just because I think that the fall overall for a lot of retailers wasn't great, particularly if you had a little bit of a weaker value proposition, and or you had some fairly weak financing in place, from a cash flow standpoint, because we're going to wind up and see a whole bunch of returns coming in now in
Yeah.
January. So I think you're going to see sort of the next layer of retailers either quietly bow out or be sold or refinanced. And I think there could be some layoffs in the retail sector too, as with other sectors, because when you sell more on promotion, if you're not careful, you can really hurt your margins, and you need a certain gross margin percent in order to pay the bills and cover your SG&A, right? So I think there is going to be sadly a bit of a fallout as we turn into 23.
And what do you think the retailers of today need to do to survive in this environment?
Well, I think you need to have a very clear value proposition. You need to either be hanging around sort of at that upper edge, the luxury segment, because luxury consumers are doing okay. They still face headwinds, but they still have a lot more discretionary income. So the luxury market is in pretty good shape. So either cater to the luxury market or, become a value or be a value retailer, a value retailer like a dollar store or a Walmart or a Costco or someone who offers great value at the lower end. I think again we're going to see some strain in that mid-tier sector because people who aren't well-heeled are really watching their money now and they're down channeling
Mm,
to the value segment. So, and you can't turn on a dime. If you're a medium retailer, you can't suddenly become a value retailer. I
yeah.
think it's just the tides that are going to come in. As I think you are where you are. But I think as a retailer, you just have to really keep your costs in check. You have to clearly understand your value proposition and gravitate to one of those two areas and just continue to offer value, whatever value looks like. It doesn't always mean having the greatest discounts. It could also mean having the best features and benefits for your price point.
Hmm. Now, one of the things when you talk about offering value and experience, one of the key factors is having staff and having
Yeah.
people in stores. Yet, we keep hearing of all the labor shortages out there in all industries really in Canada, but the retail sector is particularly is hit hard. How difficult is it for the retailers that part of your whole value proposition is having, associates and staff there willing to help you, yet they can't find them.
It's a great point, and it's a major issue that retailers have lived with mostly, over the last couple of years, but continuing on to 23 is getting staff, and the government's trying to remedy that with temporary foreign workers and increased immigration, but it takes time to get people in and trained. So it's going to be really tough. Is automation a key? Yeah, sometimes automation can help, but that requires capital and it takes time. So it's a real tough one for retailers. It's probably less of an issue for those who are a little more self-serve,
Yeah.
but for those who require people, to handle things, which is most retailers, when you think about stocking shelves and things, then it's a real tough one.
Yeah. And do you see, Bruce, as we head into 2023, the again the discount retailers, the Dollaramas of the world, the Walmarts of the world, do you see them like poised for growth because of the environment out there?
I do, and I also see the growth of thrift stores. I also
Yeah.
see the growth of used products through people like eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, wherever you can buy used and experienced products. I mentioned a retailer called Plato's Closet, which you mentioned this week in your newsletter where they're expanding. So I think that's going to be a real focus too, is the thrift market and the used product market. People just need to find new ways to save with food being up so much and housing being up so much. So I think you're going to see a significant growth in that sector as well.
All right. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us today.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, Mario.
All right, that was Bruce Winder, who is a national retail expert and consultant. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, taking care of business on Canada's Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us today.